Exactly a year ago, I made a crazy decision leaving everything behind in California to travel to Australia. But what I saw here completely changed how I see the way we live in the US and how a lot of things we believed about America and the rest of the world all turned out to be wrong. So today, I want to talk about the 7 biggest lessons Australia taught me about what it means to be an American and what we have to learn from Aussies as soon as possible. And we will be going from the smallest to the one that breaks all we ever believe about both America and Australia. Now let's get right into it. But what exactly happened when I visited Australia? And how did it help me relearn what it means to be American? Well, to put it simply, you will never imagine how Aussies already found the solution to so many simple everyday disasters that Americans are still bickering over on national TV. Unless you come here to see what I saw, and just how many things that Aussies have been doing right for centuries, but Americans still mock them instead of learning from them. Because the first one I learned from Aussies is that we should learn to thank our bus driver. Bro, I'm telling you, being a bus driver in the US must be the worst job you can ever take. Only 10% of passengers would thank you, and most of the ones doing that are international students, to the point that after traveling back from Australia, I went out of my way to thank my local bus driver in California, and she outright yelled at me to get off the bus. So, even they're not used to being thanked. But in Australia, bro, you guys all thank your bus drivers. Even if you're having a bad day, even if you're in a hurry, you guys never forget to do that. And I think the difference comes down to how taking the bus is seen as saving money, helping the environment in Australia, while taking the bus in America is considered being a loser because you can't drive a shiny vehicle like everyone else. Also, there's the idea of if you're being paid to do something, you don't deserve to be thanked in America. And it's wrong, I know, but we can only hope that Americans can learn to thank the driver the way Aussies do. And this also applies to people cleaning up your hotel room and the chef making food for you in the restaurant. If you enjoy, my Aussie friend told me that instead of tossing money into their face as tips, why don't you go out of your way to thank them for once? But that is unlikely to change in America anytime soon. Unlike the subscribe button, which would totally change color right after you click it. And the next thing I want to bring up is what Aussies have been complaining about America for so long, but Americans never seem to listen. And that is we should really not take our politicians that seriously. Hey, there's a funny tradition of booing all politicians who turn up to sports events in Australia. No kidding, that was hilarious when I first saw it. Since many Aussies would say that if you can't boo a politician, well, maybe they don't deserve to be in office. But in America, you wake up and drive listening to politics, decorate your house with political thingy as if you're doing a political Halloween. Like, there has to be something more important than politics, right? Even though Aussies do talk about politics, but that's mostly reserved for Twitter, Facebook, and family gatherings. You rarely hear them mentioning politics in public, especially in big cities, without getting weird looks. Also, I noticed that most Aussies tend to stay neutral when they do talk about politics. They have opinions, but they don't let politicians completely represent what they believe. And maybe that's why they don't put any politician on the pedestal, unlike America. But hey, even that will not be as bad as the next one for Americans, and that is why can't we sit in the front seat of a taxi just like Aussie? Doesn't that feel weird? I mean, I always love to chit-chat with the driver, and like talking to them from the back seat just feels a bit weird. And I know it doesn't happen all the time. If it's male drivers, the girls would mostly sit in the back. But at least sitting in front without being awkward is an option, which you can never say the same about America. If not for safety concerns, bro, you never know what your passenger or even your driver is going to be. The next one is also one of these eye-opening Aussie habits that I never believed to be possible, but now I simply can't live without it. And that is, can we stop leaving the tap running as we move around the kitchen and bathroom in America? Bro, especially in Airbnb and apartments where you don't have to pay for the water bill. You can bet your money that Americans would just leave the water on for 20 minutes before a shower, not even a bath, bro. And growing up seeing water being wasted around like that, I can't explain how surprised I was to see my Aussie friends only using the water for a split second when needed. Well, turns out the Millennium Drought, one of the worst droughts in history about 25 years ago in Australia, Australia really put the notion of saving every drip of water into everyone's mind, and washing dishes in the sink with the tap off instead of leaving it running the whole time became a common practice. And I don't know if it's gonna take the same level of terrible drought for America to finally learn not to waste any more water. And not sure if it's for the same reason, but most Aussies seem to love taking a shower over taking a bath. It's almost like a national obsession with taking showers, which I assume is also for saving water. But come on, a bathtub is just a dangerous slippery trap. Why would you want that in your house? But what you would totally need is one thing that every Aussie has the luxury of having, but Americans can only dream of having. And that is why Can America protects its customers like Australia. Bro, I'm saying Aussie consumer protections are some of the best in the world. Even Steam, the biggest gaming platform owned by an American company, was forced to change their global refund policy under Australian consumer law. And the reason was simple. If you're selling a product to someone in Australia, you will be held to a higher standard to follow all the rules. But in America, customers have no right. You know how everything is based on subscription nowadays and how impossible it is to cancel? Bro, they're pretty much given all the power to do what they want. And so many times, bro, you will still be charged for the bill even after you cancel it. So you have to call again, they tell you, sorry, there's nothing we can do to help you. So now you have to call your bank to cancel the credit card. Yada yada, trust me, you don't want to be a customer in America. But the craziness didn't end there, as I also can't figure out why Americans don't recycle the rubbish the same way Aussies do. Look, it's no secret that Aussies care about nature. You can see that in the stunning beaches you come across all over Australia. And I've even seen a recent report that more than 60% of waste in Australia is actually recovered and used again. It's crazy how efficient you guys are when it comes to recycling, but Americans never recycle. And most plastic goes straight to landfills without a second thought, even if it can still be recycled. And with how little care people give to maintaining the city and nature in America, bro, we can all say it's only getting worse. And when you do want to recycle and be good for the environment, guess what? Any plastic used for keeping the food, sorry, you can't recycle that, even if it's clean and completely new. That's the whole point of using plastic containers for food. If you can't recycle them, then why do we even use them? But nothing would be more shocking than the biggest lesson Australia taught me about being an American. And that is, we should never look down on Australia. And you might think this is a joke, but why can't Americans in our media talk about Australia in a positive way? They always say, oh, it's a place with funny slang and nothing but spider. Aussies, you say, ain't they a bunch of cowboys with British accent? Like, can we just stop before it gets embarrassing for Americans? Listen, we never have the brightest idea when it comes to what Australia is. So why do Americans feel the need to look down on everyone? Why can't we just learn from Aussies instead? I mean, just look, they can go to school without being in danger. They can have an injury without going bankrupt. They can take a day off to spend time with family and loved ones without worrying about losing their job. Like, why can't Americans realize what we're having is completely broken? And if Aussies have already figured that out over there, why can't we just put down our ego and learn? Even if you don't want to do that, okay? Can we as Americans, can we agree to stop calling any Aussie a British Texan? The stereotype doesn't even make sense. Like, bro, have you seen those taxes? Bro, they're nothing like Aussies. But that's not even the craziest, because in this video, I talk about the top 8 Aussie words that were so shocking for America, my heart almost stopped beating when I heard that. But you can click on the video to find out what it is.